Oh man, it's I'm stuck at like 25 minutes.
Thank you everyone very much for coming tonight. It means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Baruch Hashem, me and Elie were able to, over the past year, be Siyum Masechet Sanhedrin. I would like to say a few words before we get to that. First of all, now that I've mentioned it, I got to talk a little bit about Elie. This chavrusa started at the water fountain probably during the shachars. I don't even remember full details. I just remember that at that time I was looking to pick up another Masechta to learn on the side. The original plan was for this to be a pre-shachris chavrusa. Did we even hit one hand?
We did. I was sleeping.
Someone's telling me what to say in the back.
We'll let Elie share some more details about what went on. We started off, we didn't know how serious this was going to be, so we were both using mini Gemaras. That lasted quite a while. I think we got it about David. I waited until about Mephay. But Baruch Hashem, at first it was like every 3 days maybe, and then it was around the end of January last year when we seriously picked up and started doing three or four times a week, and then this year it was almost every day, and then when we hit the 11th Perek Chelik, which is 25 dafim of Agadah, it became twice a day, if not more. We just wanted to get out of there. Baruch Hashem, Sanhedrin is a very large Masechta. And we were able to complete it with a lot of Siyata Schreier. We are holding now on the Yontif of Hanukkah right now. And we light 36 candles. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and so on. This symbolizes to take it little by little. That if we take it little by little, it all adds up to 36. There are 36 Masechtas in Shas. And we're now the Daf Yomi cycle is approaching the end of a cycle of 36 Masechtos. It's appropriate the time of year that they're coming towards a conclusion. It shows how much, if you take it slowly, one can accomplish from this. It really just takes patience and take it. You don't need to be Messiah everything in one day. It takes time. The important point is to just do it consistently. The Masechta talks a lot about topics like Misa and like matters of Bezdin, which at first glance, like, what is there to really get from that? If you look deeper, there's really a lot to be gotten from this Masechta. It talks about a lot of important topics. I would say I want to gravitate away from the 11th Perek, but the 11th Perek is what's most fresh on my mind. And it goes through a lot of different drushos. It goes through Nach, which is something everyone here should be learning at some point in the day. The stories. The stories of the kings. The Mishnah says there are Shlosh Malach and Arba Yotos in Chilul Haba. So it goes through the stories about the different kings. It goes very much in depth on Yeravam, who was probably the worst king the Jewish people ever saw. and he had some competition with him. Nashe Achov, there's really a lot there. It goes through drashos about the Teva. It tells a little about how bad the people of Sodom were. They were pretty bad. I'd now like to continue with a few more thank yous now. First of all, I would like to thank my parents very much for allowing me to be here in Yeshiva Shanavet. I really appreciate the fact that you allowed me to be here this year. I would like to thank the different people who have helped me and pushed me a bit. Whether it's my other chavrusas, like last year, me and Gabriel Riefman learned eating together. He was always very motivating for me. Carfunkel, who sat next to Elie Carfunkel, who sat next to us in the Beis Medrash most of the year last year whenever we would be learning Sanhedrin. Velvel, who used to interrupt. Oh, and Ellie, you again would interrupt you during night service. You guys are all a lot of motivation to me. I would like to thank the yeshiva for allowing me to be here and for allowing us to learn here and supplying the right environment for us. I'd like to thank Zach for taking time out of his crazy schedule these days to come. And now I'd like to hand it over to Elie.
Yeah, that was laughing.
He's like, yeah, it's
I'll be doing stand-up, continuing with that later on. Honestly, standing here, I feel like I'm getting up for like a future business pitch. If one of you should invest in Burg's Burgers. But anyways, okay. Thank you all for coming, everyone for making it out. I assume everyone has busy schedules. I have no idea what else you guys could have been doing. Honestly, and hopefully you had other motivators to bring you in the door. But you stay for the Torah. But if you stay for the food, the MS, it's fine. All right. So this is L'Zichron. This is my grandfather, Shlomo ben Leyv. He's kind of the driver, other than Schreier, for getting this done. And we'll get back to that, how this came about and all this ridiculousness started. Just want to thank my Rebbeim, Turetsky, Reb Leibowitz, Reb Wagner, Reb Zach, being a bris tomorrow. I don't know why he's here. Rabbi Yehuda, right, and all the Rebbeim who are at the wedding. Next, I want to move on to my family. My parents, extraordinary people. Just a privilege to be among them, both running around, saving Jewish people. My father, hopping across the world. I mean, I guess that's what you would call it. And my mother also, never saving the Jews. My father, my mother also at the same time. Big or small, whatever it takes. Whether starting a school, running a camp. I just texted her earlier today, and a phone call. She's like, "I'm so sorry, I'm about to give a shiur." I'm like, "Okay, you do that now." But moving on, right? That really starting with the inspiration from my parents, always driving, keep it going, and to have such an active household. My siblings for stepping it up. It's a busy place at the Burg household. Thank God. Always people in and out. A lot of hachnas orchim, a lot getting done. But really, they're stepping up, and the Yiras Hashem, and really. But at the end of the day, the midos is driven home of what it's all about being from Hashem, and treating everyone, like I mentioned, treating everyone the way they're supposed to. And then just to go back why we're sitting here right now, how this all started. why we're even here, why we met at the washing station, whatever you want to call it, during Shacharis, is my grandfather. Going back to about 10th grade, it was, Hanukkah time, and it was, my grandfather hadn't been well for about a year now. My mom was flying in and out constantly. It wasn't simple. And Friday morning they woke me up, and they said, your grandfather's passed away. You have a flight to Israel on Sunday to Makor Chaim, the MTA exchange program. You got to pack up. So they said, your grandfather will want you to be there. We're going to fly out to the funeral on Motzei Shabbos. But you're going to go. So my mom, after just getting the phone call, went ahead, packed me up in a half hour. Don't know how she did it, and how she does everything she does. And we packed up. They flew out to the funeral. I went on the plane to Makor Chaim. It's a fascinating yeshiva. Interesting mindset of Steinsaltz High School. Just to give you an idea, there was like a kid who lived in the deer next to us who used to carry a bird in his pocket. Not like a live bird. And he'd walk up to next to you and stick it in your face, like, Boker Tov. I'm like, good morning to you too also. And that was the most normal kid there. But it was an experience, and we had an amazing time. But about 2 or 3 days in, I got a text with a link to the funeral that I was going to be able to watch. And I was going through it, and I remember seeing my grandmother, my father, my aunt spoke, and then all of a sudden this guy got up to speak. I didn't know him personally. He got up, he said he was my grandfather's chavrusa, and he started talking about my grandfather. I was falling asleep, so at that point all I got was they learned Sanhedrin together. My grandfather, we'll get to a little bit later, didn't grow up from. They spent X amount of years on it, got through about a third of Sanhedrin, and that was it. That's all I knew. I continued throughout. At that point, I made a mental note. My grandfather hadn't finished Sanhedrin, and I was going to go ahead and do it at some point. I wasn't sure when. I knew there's this thing called yeshiva where you just get everything done religiously, and then you continue on with your life. So for some of us, that's 2 days. Other of us, we got a few more months. And it was continuing through. So that's kind of how I put in my head, and I continued on. Fast forward to last year. Right after Hanukkah, it was time right after Hanukkah, time to step it up. You got Hanukkah out of the way, get a little religious, stop Wednesday nights, maybe not. And we continued, right? So this was an idea in my mind, all these ideas always flying, do this, that, fine. But it was an idea that I put in the back, and I was like, maybe I should try this. So I was like, all right, I gotta get something done. And there's long Shemona Esrei here. I tend not to be the longest one. I have a lot of time to think and do whatever. So there's this great time after Chazar Sashatz. Highly recommend it. Go outside. There's this whole situation going outside. Yeah, it's fine. You walk outside, and all of a sudden, you're credentials. You're what? You a Cohen? No, I'm not a Cohen. Okay, so get out of here. I'm like, okay. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go fill my water bottle. As you walk, they're eyeing you. I learned that was the Schreier brother situation. As I continued filling my water bottle, someone came over to me, gave me a slap on the back. Still recovering to this day. And he said, what's going on? What are you doing here? I'm like, yeah, just filling my water bottle, not interfering with the Kohens, And I said, popped out, I was like, I don't learn Sanhedrin, it'd be cool, right? And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, what? and he's like, yeah, let's learn Sanhedrin. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So I went, picked up a mini shas, because I thought it was cute. We'll start the first parak. Leave aside that. And the first 3 weeks, I honestly didn't want to do it. I didn't know how long the Masechta was until after I agreed to it. I opened it up and I'm like, I just learned Mako. It's different size. Not all of them are the same. A lot of things you learn in yeshiva. And it came about, I said, all right, fine, let's go. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, I would just honestly ditch. Schreier would text me Thursday night after Shalom. I'm like, yeah, I'll be around. And it'd be all right, it's we learning. It's 11:30. I'm like, sorry, asleep. He's like, you're texting. I'm like, yeah, don't worry. Good night. And it'd go for 2 weeks, get a day in, and then I remember 3 weeks in, it must have been, we got 4 nights straight, and I was like, oh wow, this could work. And we continued through, and this has been, to learn with Asher, right? It's been an incredible experience. I found new things I could never imagine. I'm now an expert on barley and cholent. To start, I'm also holding in the, in case you're wondering about employee deal for stop, walk, and roll, stop, chop, and roll in the 5 towns. The way it works, to put it simply, if you work, no, I'm serious. If you work at one of their participating locations, you get a free meal per day. That's not limited to where you're working. You go to either location. You cannot double it. Okay, just to clarify, it goes by vice versa. It works. Are we good? Okay, fine. It's coming from the Mashgiach, so you better trust it. Yeah, I texted a picture of it from this summer. I got no response. I was like, all right. You got me there. But yeah, no, just continuing on every day. Just a break. We find these times there's a lot about minutes. Learned a lot about minutes. We do these constantly 3:10 slots, these power slots. We'd run through it. 3:10, this time, whatever time we could find throughout the day. I was very much in the shotgun through all this, just to clarify. Asher was carrying the way, pushing me through, as I said before, I tried ditching it. So this is not at all my thing to take over. But every day pushing and grinding, you just have someone who always there to help you, keeps it going is really incredible. And then really to talk about my grandfather, who my grandfather was, why we're here tonight. My grandfather didn't grow up from. He didn't. His great-grandmother actually came from my great-grandmother. His mother actually went to Teaneck High. She moved to LA. Grew up conservative, very traditional. Around the age of 40 or so, he went ahead and said they started becoming from a complete shift. He got a little bit more into learning, and then he started picking up shots. He did shots Daf Yomi twice with the shear. He then went ahead and picked up a Chavrusa Berry. And they started to learn Sanhedrin on their own, right? My grandfather was a very, very simple person. He was in the army at the beginning, then he got a pension, went to work for IBM for about 40 years. Fascinating person. When he retired, he was the only typewriter left in Los Angeles that would have fixed typewriters. So he was the go-to person for President Reagan and his wife. After they continued the presidency, he would go once a month to fix their typewriter. But as I speak to my mom, she said, whether he was dealing with a former president or a secretary, he treated everyone the same. And he would say, my dad, I spoke to him, I asked all my siblings to send, and they would just say, it was very simple, he cared about everyone. My dad was telling me a story, is that when he was working for IBM, he went to a client's house, and he was doing a job, and it was taking a while, and he kept on looking at his watch, and he started to get angry. And he just, it didn't feel right to him, right? He pays me to do the job, okay, it's taking more time, why do I get angry at him? And from that day on, he never wore a watch again. Because once that meant that he was going to get angry at people, he couldn't continue with it. And that's who he was, right? We always talk about it. He always had a Gemara with him. He loved learning. He was a minyan man because that's who he was. And he was really, we call it on his Torah, it says he was a mensch. And that's who he was. He was a Pashat Tzaddik, a simple guy. He did his job. And, ultimately, this is where we're standing today. And I thought this was so nice. I got to tell my grandmother, so I call her up last Thursday night. And she starts to cry. As expected, very emotional, and she says, "You don't understand." I said, "I finished. I think I understand pretty well. I think it's very emotional." She said, "Your grandfather's Chavrusa Berry." I said, "I heard the name, whatever it is." He said, "Next Sunday, Berry's being Messiah Masechah Sanhedrin." This was less than 24 hours ago. Berry went ahead and finished Masechah Sanhedrin. And I knew they learned for a long time, and thank God I had the honor to speak to Barry last night for the first time. And I didn't really know so much, and I said, how long did you learn with my grandfather? He said, 23 years. I said, well, what did you guys accomplish? They accomplished about a third of the Masechta of Sanhedrin over 23 years. I said, he said, we met every single week, every Monday night, 23 years. And they said, and then after your grandfather passed away, I continued, and he, together with his wife pushed him and said, Barry, let's go, you're finishing it. As my grandfather passed away, and 28 years later, he was Messiah Masechah Sanhedrin, 28 years later. And he learned with my grandfather 23 years to finish a third of the Masechta. So I said one question, how did you do it? Because we're not even 23 years old, and to spend 23 years on what we wouldn't consider that anything. That for us, that's we look down upon that, right? We're what's going on? How amazing that is. He said, but it was much bigger than that when I was speaking to him. I said, how do you do it 23 years? He said, we met every week, and then before we knew it, it became something more of something we did to necessity. My week wasn't complete without learning with your grandfather. Your grandfather had many more chavrusas than me. He loved learning, he loved talking about you, but he said my week was not complete without going through that. And he said, we just pushed. Every day, he said, sometimes we would not even move. We would go through the same week after week, not even making progress. He said, but that was progress. And he said, you know how we did it? We did it because Talmud Torah pushes you to do it. This guy didn't grow up wasn't from most of his life, and he said, but it's all about Talmud Torah. And Hashem kept me going to 28 years to finish Masechah Sanhedrin. And that's who Barry is. You know, we talk about greatness, we talk about where greatness lies, we talk about accomplishment. You learn for 28 years one Masechah, and you're Messiah that Masechah. And you can't really compare that to someone who sits all their life and grows up from it. I don't know how you compare that on a scale, but it's up there. It's up there somewhere. My grandfather also pushing for 23 years, a third of Masechah, right? He did Shas twice in a year. How much did he know? I don't know. But he sat there for a third and knew the third of Masechah over 23 years. And that's enough for me. And then just to finish off, right, we talk about the Masechah Sanhedrin, we talk about leadership. Continuing through, right, we start with the Dayanim, right, up to the Malachim, and then Zakan Mamre, this whole theme of leaders, and maybe it doesn't end so well always. Right, Lubyansky says there's one theme though across all the leaders. It's that all leaders have to take achrayus, right? The Kohanim, the spiritual, the king, for the economy, for the physical. And the Zakan Mamre, the reason why we go against the Zakan Mamre so strongly is because he uproots the whole idea of taking achrayus, of taking responsibility as a leader. And achrayus is not necessarily you stepping up and taking care of everyone. It's taking care of your tafkid. If your tafkid is to take 28 years and learn one Masechta, you do it. If it means 23 years and a third of Masechta, it means being a mensch, if it means growing up and caring about every single person, that's it. That's Sitkos. That's all it is. That's righteousness that we talk about. That's what we strive for. All right, so now we finish off the Masechta. Talking about tzaddikim. You know, something we always, Pashat Tzaddik, my grandfather, we finish off, Shenemar, Tzaddik, Avid, Ve'ein, Ish, Sam, Aliv, right? That there's no, if we lose a Tzaddik, right, there's no place in our heart for it. V'anchi Chesed, Naf, Nesafim, Be'ein, Mavin, right? We lose the righteousness without understanding. Kim Ne'ara, Nesafat, Tzaddik, right? Because of the Ra, the bad, we lose a Tzaddik. Tzaddik, Bali Olam, Tova, Bali Olam. A Tzaddik who comes to the world, he comes at a good time. Shenamar, Zay, Chameinu, Ma'asenu, Ma'atmeinu, Yadenu, right? And we lose it in our hands. Hadran Allah, Kol Yisrael, Yeshel Ham, Chelak, V'Salik Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin.
Hadran Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, V'Adjachon. Daitan Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, Daitachon. Lo Nisha Sheminach, Masechah Sanhedrin, Lo Nisha Shemidon. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, Lo Ba'ama Dase. Hadran Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, V'Adjachon. Daitan Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, V'Daitachon. Lo Nisha Sheminach, Masechah Sanhedrin, Lo Nisha Shemidon. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, Lo Ba'ama Dase. Hadran Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, V'Adjachon. Daitan Allah, Masechah Sanhedrin, V'Daitachon. Lo Nisha Sheminach, Masechah Sanhedrin, Lo Nisha Shemidon. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, Lo Ba'ama Dase. Yiratzon Lefan Echad Learn V'Lei Avosin Shetei Soras Chom Manusinu Ba Mazeusi Manu Lomaba Chanina Bar Papa Rami Bar Papa Nachman Bar Papa Achoy Bar Papa Abamari Bar Papa Rafa Bar Papa Rachish Bar Papa Surcha Bar Papa Adam Bar Papa Dari Bar Papa Hiram Nan Learn West Soras Chom Finu Fivio Sam Chobis Selvini Akona Nachman Bisatei Bisatei Am Chobis So Corner Yodish Mechavon De Soras Echame Vait Chakmin Bisatei Hilam Hili Libi Sam Bikhakan Man Levo Shalom Moesh Kach Bikudecha Kibam Chisani Bar Khatwan Lam Dini Khutecha Amin 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 Selavad More Badang Van Echan Leon was in Santa Kinim Yoshi Base American Slam Kinim Yoshi Kronos Shani Mashkim Mashkim Manu Mashkim the Victoria Mashkim Barming Manu Amil Manu Amim Kabul Sky Amil Kabul Sky Honorable Matum Honorable Paima above a Matum Beshash never battle him to in Beshach and Shit on Memo Yakasi may have any of top of you also know Van Echan Ohai Shim Shazat as I tell you myself Sanhedrin having the hassle myself to sort of Simon Lumo Lam English Mablas time as well the base on the yourself about because Koatanar Bamaram Samide Khamiam Lusa Shaya Mashator PM Hizari Vizari Adolam. This is kind of Salah Kotaka, South Shafatish Moraka, he tells us he's he view Yamaha civil question of Skyim or Yam Minovis Bismo or Shavakabo and I was on waiting on my
Alright, Biamel Kudisha Berkhum Balchus of Vikarab, Bekai Horufon, Hai Beko Besar Bagos Makrib, Romain.
Amen.
Vizdar Visa Vislash, Mutual Berkhu, Elmako Berkhasab, Shir Saltish, Khasam, Khasadam, Bamba, Bimramain. I saw Raban and Valtamidan, Valcomedy, Samideon, Valcoman, Discover Isa, Yosay, Holasarva, Sari, Hilokon, Holashar Rabba, Kanu Vista. Rahman Khan Rikhi was on Rikhi, we come Kodam with the Schreier, Romain. Yeshua Raman Shemai, Khan Vakois Album, Romain. Session Merma, Session Lane Vakois Album, Romain.
Say
Hey,